Hello friends and welcome back to a new video. Now that we've restarted the channel, and last video I told you that there probably won't be any reaction videos, question that's left is what's gonna be coming here for you in the next couple of weeks or months. So today I want to tell you a little bit about what I have as plans for this YouTube channel and what I have planned for my own creative solo business as I have it running, because those things are very much connected. And for all that to make a lot of sense, we'll probably have to jump back 2 or 3 years. So I started with this entire thing of being a content creator about probably soon 4 years ago. That's when I did the first projects, and that's when was the first time that I ever got paid a little bit for making videos. Initially it started out for me being just solely an editor. I had a camera back then, but I didn't really know what to do with it. And the only thing that I knew was at that point in time, I had a huge drive to figure out how to make videos. So the first thing that I did, I just practiced editing. And one of the biggest things that I did in the very beginning was a couple of videos for John Olsen that I simply made by downloading his YouTube videos, using that footage and editing something cool out of that. That's how the entire thing started.
Thanks to Florian, our super mega awesome highlight man. He has put it together, so I hope you guys enjoyed this.
And that was also when the first time people approached me through Instagram and asked me if I could edit something for them. And pretty much till the end of 2018, being an editor was the main thing that I did. And that's also when I started this video series, the editor reaction videos, that probably brought you here to the channel. Now what I noticed back then very much is that as an editor, first of all, you're kind of very replaceable because there's always tons of other editors. And then also it's quite difficult to make enough money to ultimately sustain yourself and make that your full-time income, because eventually that was what I had planned and what I wanted to do. I wanted to turn this entire thing into a business for myself so that I wouldn't have to take another job. I could just be doing this. I could just be creative and produce videos. And in the first year in 2018 that I did this full-time, that was quite a hassle to figure that out. I was getting my first bigger video project where I was also doing the filming. But then the majority of that year, I was just simply an editor, editing for people that needed Instagram content, editing for other YouTubers and all that sort of stuff. And that year was, let's say, I barely got by financially. It was quite a hassle and it was pretty painful. And the thing was also that I didn't have anyone who taught me about the business side of being a solo creative entrepreneur, however you want to call it. And I had to teach that to myself and figure that out for myself. And I quickly noticed that the next step up from being an editor would be to be like a filmmaker, content producer. So where I would also be paid for going out with a camera and then actually filming things and producing it. And that's when I made the step up from getting paid a few hundred to maybe 1,000 euros per project, more to like the range of 1,000 to 5,000 euros per project. And I did this pretty much until the middle of 2019, when I realized that, hey, this seems to be working. I'm doing something right here. It's going in the right direction. But for me to really turn this into a career, it needs to step another level up. In 2019, I was definitely making enough money to live a comfortable life, to buy the gear that I needed, to also be able to pay taxes, because that's one of the most important things you need to figure out in the beginning. But then I really realized that, hey, if I want to do this long term, if in 5 years from now I still want to do it, this is not gonna cut it. I need to step it up another notch. So that's really when I started putting a lot of time and effort into figuring out the business side of things and thinking way more in the perspective from the actual client that are then the ones hiring you for a project, and thinking about, okay, how does this actually make sense to them to spend a couple thousand euros, maybe 10,000 euros on a project to pay off for them as a business benefit and to get a return on their investment. And that's eventually when my few bigger projects, now since the end of 2019 and throughout the entire 2020, came in, where I've made the upgrade from just not being the filmmaker anymore, but getting one step higher even on more like a strategic level, where I'm helping brands to organize entire campaigns. And those projects that I did this year, they were really the moment where I thought like, okay, this is really gonna go that step higher, and I'm not gonna be that freelancer anymore, but instead I'm gonna level up to build an own small production company or consulting firm or agency, however you would want to call it. And this is actually where I really want to recommend you to a video, I'll link it up here, from The Future and Chris Do. That's one of the channels that I've been probably watching the most over the last 1.5 years, because they're sharing so much good business insights for freelancers or for creatives that have never heard of that before. So the big realization there for me was really to not see myself as a freelancer anymore, because if you're perceived like this from a potential client, you're very, very replaceable. But instead see myself as a small business owner of a mini production company or media agency that I'm building right now. And that's eventually where I made the shift from going to, let's say, 2,000 to 6,000 euro projects now to the range that when I'm doing a project now, it's more in the 10 to 50,000 euro range. And then you're suddenly getting to a point where you think like, okay, yeah, this could really turn into a long-term career. And now it's really worth all the effort, all the hassle that I needed to put in those 3 or 4 years to really learn the skills and get all that experience of working on different campaigns and understanding all that is behind content production and how that then turns into like a business benefit for any client that eventually needs to get some benefit. Otherwise, it wouldn't even make any sense for them to pay you after all. And that eventually was the moment where I realized, hey, I don't want to put myself out there as an editor anymore. I realized I was getting so many editing requests over the last 1.5 years where I didn't even want to offer that anymore as a service, where instead I wanted to be 1 or 2 levels higher up in the production of content or campaigns. And that also led me to think that there needs to be a change for the channel. We're going away from the editor reaction videos. Now, going forward, instead of helping you figure out the editing, for that you can just simply watch the old editor reaction videos, should be enough by now. Instead, I want to focus a lot more on helping you get your solo creative business started and turning it maybe first into a side hustle and then eventually maybe into something full-time, as I managed to do it for myself. So when I took that step and decided to go full-time and knew that turning this into business would really be based on 3 main ways of how I could make money coming in. The first would be client projects. The second would be teaching and education, making online courses, workshops, and all that sort of stuff. And the third one would be income from my actual social media. So YouTube channel, ad revenue, affiliate, brand partnerships. And for me, it was always very clear that it's a very simple order. The most realistic and quickest way to get money is through client projects. Next thing might be that you eventually have enough experience to start teaching it with workshops, online courses, and all that sort of stuff. And eventually, if this grows big enough, only then it's really gonna be bringing in any money from ad revenue, affiliate, and all those kind of things. And whereas the last 2 years were really for me to figure out the client work situation and leveling that up, charging more money, the next year is much more focused for me starting to teach it, offering online education and all those sort of things. And as I am very much a fan of not learning from theory, but learning from going out and practicing things, what I want to be doing going forward is to really give you a look behind the curtain of how I am fixing my own business and also share some real world case studies from other creators that have managed it maybe a completely different way than mine, so that you can see yourself and pick out those things where you can think, hey, this is how I can apply it for myself. This is how this could work in my situation. Because eventually I am not the expert myself. For that, you should go and watch The Future and Chris Do. The thing though is that I might just be 2, 3, or 4 years ahead of you and where you want to go. So I think by now there's been a lot of experiences that I made and a lot of good insights that I have that I want to share with you to help you figure it out for yourself. And that brings me to the next point, because for me this year, and that's also the reason why I didn't really produce a lot of YouTube content, was to really focus on my client projects, leveling those up, making those bigger, charging more money, being more professional, leveling up the quality. Because I knew that it's the quickest way to make enough money to sustain yourself. Because eventually, and I think we might be making that to a slogan on the channel going forward now, if you can't survive, you can't create. Right? If you're not making enough money to keep the lights on and you need to spend your time doing a job that requires 50, 60, 70 hours per week, then eventually when do you want to find time to produce photos or video? You won't have time for that to then sit down and do all the editing that it requires. So for me, the client work was always the most important first pillar of my business. The second though, and that's where all the YouTube content comes into play and the creator circle and all the events and so on, I've always been enjoying very much to teach things to people. So I guess you've seen that in the reaction videos where I got super excited about really analyzing the editing techniques, breaking it down, making it understandable, and trying to really scale it down so that you could easily understand that. And I've been doing that through my entire time when I was in school, when I was at university, now with the editing. And the next step is going to be to do exactly that, just for the business side of being a content creator. Last year on the Creator Circle meetups, I already started offering in-person workshops, and over the last 12 months or so, I've also been doing quite a few like individual consultations for creators that reached out to me and asked for my advice. And that, moving forward for next year, is probably going to be the second pillar of my personal business, and that's going to be a huge part of the videos going forward on this channel. And I personally decided for myself that on the business side of things, I can have a way bigger impact than teaching you editing techniques. For that, by now, there won't be so much more new things that I can show you in the reaction videos. It's just gonna be me trying to fish for additional views for the channel. Honestly admitted, of course, was the main reason why I started that series, to grow the channel and get my first few thousand subscribers. Turned out very well, but eventually I just couldn't see myself doing reaction videos for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years to come. But instead, much more I could see myself doing something exactly like the Creator Circle and the workshops. And actually killing those reaction videos, it was kind of a difficult decision, because eventually I know that they're gonna bring in a lot of views and a lot of new people to the channel. But eventually at one point I realized that going forward I don't want to be known as the reaction video guy. So eventually we'll have to take the step out of it. And maybe at another point we'll bring something similar back in the future, like a filmmaker reacts or a content producer reacts, but not for now. And you can already get used to seeing a lot of these kind of talking head videos where I'm just sitting down, putting up the camera. Because what I realized for myself, and you maybe will get to that point as well someday, is that putting a lot of time and hassle into producing your own content, like making YouTube videos and so on, is very much going to get in the way of you actually putting something out. I noticed that for myself. It's very often the reason why I did not edit any vlog, because I knew that now it's going to take me 6 to 10 to maybe 12 hours if I want to turn it into the coolest video possible to then be able to put it out somewhere. So instead, I'm most likely going to be doing a lot more sitting in front of the camera, pressing record, cutting it a bit, and then uploading it to you. I think that you're going to benefit from that way more. So, and that already brings me to a small little announcement for today, and that is I just finished planning my first little mini series that I want to share with you, because especially after the last video where I showed that I did this project from Mammut, quite a few people have reached out to me and asked, like, Florian, where you get those clients, how do they find you, how do they reach you, how did you get your projects in the past? In the first little series that I have planned for you now, I want to share the process of how I am going about reaching out to potential clients, because that ultimately for you might be the very first thing you need to try and start to do to get your first paid projects. I still remember that was the exact same way that I did it in 2018 when I took the leap and finished all my smaller jobs and decided, hey, I'm only going to go full-time for this. The first thing that I did is I reached out to companies and individual people, and that's how I got my first paid jobs. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing in the first series, and that's going to come hopefully quite soon. That's it for today. Hope you're excited for that, and super cool that you checked in today. And yeah, until next time.